So welcome to our attendees. I think hopefully everyone should be able to participate and type in questions. And if you can, unmute yourself, feel free to ask any questions. We're going to let Dr. Franco just kind of go through and talk how he is incorporating carboxytherapy into his practice and using it in a multitude of different ways. And then we're going to have just an intimate discussion. So feel free to ask your questions. You can either type it into the chat or you can type it into the Q&A, and then we can answer the questions live. Or if you're able to unmute yourself or go onto video, feel free to do that as well. So I am just going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Franco. Again, Dr. Franco, thank you so much for joining us, and excited to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. And definitely when we get into some of the applications, as Lauren was saying, some of the most common questions is, how do you do this in surgery and still be efficient? How do you do it in your procedures? Do you sit home, do some of those things? And I got a few slides showing how I do it. Dr. Hoyos was super nice to share some of his slides from previously, and we do things a little differently. So it gives you a little bit of a KZ as well. So you'll get a little bit of a range of how we all do it, and I'll try not to misquote them of their system, but at least gives you an idea of kind of a spectrum of how we all do it. And Lauren, if somebody maybe pops up questions when we're doing the specific kind of application and stuff, happy to answer questions while I got the slides up, if it makes it a little bit easier for people from just kind of finesse, because I know for most of us, it's how do we be efficient and not slow down the progress of the day. But let's jump into it. Carboxy gel therapy. I'll tell you, like most of you, we hear about new things coming to the market all the time. While we want to be excited, we want to be cutting edge. I feel like we've all been burned by things that made a lot of promises. And I think the biggest thing for us is, if we're putting our name, brand, practice, reputation behind it, is this something that's really worthwhile when there's so much noise out there in the industry? So something super exciting. I think this slide is great just because it kind of shows the spectrum of this and what people are thinking. Technology has definitely evolved a lot. I'm not even sure if that's really a hyperbaric chamber anymore. If you see some of the new ones now, it's actually pretty cool, but we'll get into this. The goal for tonight are a couple things. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've utilized the carboxy gel in our practice, how we've implemented it, and definitely, like many people who are just getting started with it, we dipped our toes in the water and then kind of escalated from there, and then talk about some of the treatment options we've evolved into, and honestly in our practice it keeps growing, and then what I think it did to enhance our practice, and I think we're really only scratching the surface of what we do with it. I jump into a little bit of it because not to get too technical stuff, and honestly the limits of my science expertise from medical school and physics and all those things, but the simple idea behind this is that basically you're tricking the capillaries into opening up. The Bohr principle is that the CO2 comes in, it decreases the affinity for oxygen, so the capillaries open up, release the oxygen into the tissue cells, i.e. gain more oxygen saturation into the areas that you're doing. I think this has become so important. We've seen a lot of people either bringing hyperbaric chambers into their office or to partnering with hyperbarics, in their community for some of these treatments. Unfortunately, for a lot of practices, it's not practical either from a space or a cost to have these in. For patients, it can be super challenging. Anyone who's ever sent somebody to hyperbaric treatments, it's not cheap. So I think that there's some challenges there. And anyone besides me who's claustrophobic, I even get nervous in an elevator. Sometimes that can be a little bit challenging. There's not a lot of huge hyperbaric chambers in most communities, definitely not in the offices. So super cool how this actually works. Cool slide that we actually do on our social media all the time, talking and explaining why this is different than other things out there. I won't bore you guys too much with the whole Bohr effect, but super cool how this has been shown to be as effective as injected CO2 into the skin, which I think is cool. The beauty is in its simplicity. The idea that you can get some of this effect into it. I'll tell you, I didn't really believe it until we tried it in our office, and Lauren can tell you, I met her when I first, you remember this, we were at a conference talking about some non-invasive type stuff things and microneedling and skin tightening and stuff, and she forced me to take some samples. I think my med spa used it. They kept raving about it, got me to finally try it, and honestly, I did like one of the studies that operator did here. I did it on one half of a patient, and it was noticeably a difference, and haven't really looked back since then. This just shows some of the kind of microscopic levels of some of this opening up of the microcirculation. I think this is going to continue to be more and more important as you see many more energy devices, combination treatments coming to the market. Be whatever you want it to be, whether it's body type, Renuvion, any of the other things coming on the market, combined with Baser and other stuff. I mean, we've gotten more aggressive. Patient demands have gotten higher, and so how do you do those treatments, get people good results, and stay safe? So, I mean, it's always a balancing act that I feel us as surgeons always struggle with a little bit. We want to be cutting edge, we want to be fabulous, but we also want to be safe for our patients. The effects of this are pretty interesting. And the biggest part about this is bringing, oxygen to that tissue. And that's what you're going to see in some of these. How do we do this? How can we do it to help with some of the things that we want to do from a surgical standpoint and still decrease our risk so we can sleep at night, which is a huge value for most of us. I'll tell you that this isn't the only product out there in the market. When I got introduced to this, we did some other research, but this really seemed like the best product for us, just in terms of simplicity, results, and kind of the variety of stuff that it actually can do. And so, I think this is why it's really taken off from some of the rest of the pack. I'll tell you from a team standpoint, they've always been available when we've had questions, issues. I think the fact that they're always trying to do more studies, that anytime we've tried to involve studies in our practice, they've always been super supportive, whatever we need. So I think the fact that they value doing clinical studies, the fact that they actually, ask their participants to think about some of these things and actually measure the outcomes. I feel like if you're afraid of the results, you're not going to be asking your providers to actually, track and measure some of these results, which is a big kudos to them. I'll tell you from implementation. I mean, I think this is what's cool, because most of us, it's always hard when you bring something to the practice and you can only use it for one little niche. Then it becomes very limiting. For us, we've been able to do it through all three spectrums of our practice, from surgery to med spa to our wellness side, which has absolutely exploded. And so I think it's cool when you can bring something that actually can cause some crossover from one service line to another. As you know, generating patients through the office can be challenging now, definitely much more than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So, anything that they can generate patients in, they can be used across services. None of us want to have something that just sits in the closet. When I was in Miami for a few years, they had something that they called the $1 million closet, which was this closet full of lasers and other things that it just sat there and did nothing, that accumulated over $1 million. That'd be a lot of boxes, but we're not going to answer that. I think that the cool thing that we're talking about here is just how many different applications, and we'll touch on most of these. My practice is mostly aesthetic. I'll show a few pictures of some reconstructive stuff, but in general, in my practice, we've used it for skin health, for being more aggressive in our aesthetic procedure, where it's lipo, tummy tuck, mastopexies, any of those type of things, facelifts. Some of my derm colleagues definitely use it to treat more skin conditions. Most of us, it's just to recover and look better faster in my practice. Skin rejuvenation, no question, was one of the exciting parts of this. I think anything that's going to increase blood flow, that's going to help the skin, is definitely going to move you in that direction. We talked about the reconstructive. Anybody who's done breast reconstruction and dealt with the radiation knows that, the limitation is that microvascular circulation. So super interesting how this was used to treat breast reconstruction. Again, not something I do personally, but super, super interesting, the concept of this and the potential for this, over time. Obviously, anything you can do, especially in this age of, skin damage, the Ozempic phase, which has been a huge topic. I think anything you can do to improve that overall skin tone, open up the blood flow, do some treatments there, is going to be great. I really think, in our practice, the CO2 treatments alone have been fine, but I'll tell you the place that it's exploded for us is in combination treatments. Most patients, in this day and age, compare people's before and afters on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever you want it to be. Most people don't know that, oh, this one looks better because they got a CO2 mask. All they know is that, Dr. X's looks better than Dr. Y's. And so, I think being a way to get there, when friends are talking, oh, I wasn't red for 5 days, I was better right away. So I think those little things are ways to be practice differentiators as you go through. this is more common of what we do in our practice. So typically someone who has, skin resurfacing, microneedling, any type of treatment, we typically use this in combination because like most of you, our patients now that are back in the office, downtime is such a precious commodity for patients. So anything you can do to limit downtime definitely increases your patient conversion. So that's what's been super powerful for us. We do a lot of body stuff, and I'll show you some stuff of how we've combined it with some of our cellulite treatments and other things like that, which I feel like has really turned a once upon a time, when you talk about cellulite and other stuff was just a winter sport because most people want to be in bikinis and things like that in the summer, has now become a year-round thing, which is huge for us when that's a huge part of our business. I think being able to give people this overall better experience because microneedling, is not typically unique to one practice in your city. So anything that you can do to make the experience for your patient better throughout that journey is going to be something that makes you stand out. So something to think about when you're kind of doing your overall business development for your practice in terms of this. This is pretty standard for us. We don't typically pre-treat too much, though we have been playing with using the CO2 in combination with numbing cream to see if we can't open up those capillaries and increase the effectiveness of the numbing cream in a shorter period of time, just because trying to move patients to the office effectively. So that's TBD. That's a study we have ongoing in our office right now. So when we get that done, we'll share it with you guys. I'll show you some of this because we do a lot of body microneedling. We do saran wrap people. I'll show you how we do this with our surgery patients, with some of our BBL, some of our ovally cellulite, any of the type of treatment stuff. Makes it super easy because I know a lot of people worry about, do I have to keep somebody in the office for 45 minutes afterwards when I put the carboxy gel stuff on? And I'll tell you in our office, we don't, and patients do just fine with it. Here's a really cool one. This wish I could say this was our patient. It wasn't, but someone who got treated in a split face. And this is what we see though, is just that, not that you're not going to have any signs of having a treatment, but they're just so much more minimal. People's recovery is so much faster, so much less bruising, so much less irritation. These are the things that have been, just huge game changers for us, from the med spa to the surgery to the wellness side in our practice. This is, I talked a little bit about, the clinical studies. There's a preliminary study that again, I'm not an investigator on, but very typical of what we see in our practice and kind of studies they're looking at is just how can you decrease the redness? How can you decrease their downtime? How can you get people back into the world faster? And I think that is going to become, more and more precious as people are limited for time. No question that we get so many requests. I think especially when you look at, some of the changes with the Ozempic face, you're going to see much younger patients looking for many more treatments, especially these non-invasive, these skin tightenings. Also, I think that, one, their limited times, they haven't built up a lot of time off, are hard. A lot of people have tighter budgets. So, just missing unpaid time off, I think is not really an option for them. So I think that ways to really make this effective for them are going to be huge. This is one of Casey's pictures, and this is super interesting because she has a little bit different approach than I do. And so, she actually uses it in combination with some of her fat transfer facelifts. I'll tell you, we do use it for our facelifts, even some of our minimally invasive neck stuff like MyElevate, other things. I think in the face, it's become so huge because, for any of you that do facial procedures in general, it's not the pain that keeps people from getting back into life. It's them looking like they got hit by a truck, the two black eyes and, rhinoplasties, facelift, those type of things. Most of them actually feel pretty good, pretty fast. And so anything that you can do to decrease that downtime, that bruising stuff, I think makes a huge difference. She's looking at even whether this improves the quality of the fat grafting, the survival of the fat. So that'll be interesting to get an update at some point from her of those results stuff. But definitely interesting concepts, as all of you know. We're always playing with fat to see how we can make it survive a little better, a little bit more predictable. So I think some more cool things to come in that arena. And here's her kind of putting it on. Obviously, it's super fast, super easy. So I think it's not really something that adds much time. Obviously, one of her gorgeous, phenomenal results. And this is what's so cool is how quickly some of these people can recover from even big procedures like this. this again isn't one of my patient's stuff, but super cool because she had a explant mastopexy. I didn't eventually use it at beginning, use it for mastopexies or implant removals, these type of things. I'll tell you, it's been interesting because I've started using it when I feel like incisions are tight. I feel like maybe there's a little spots that don't have great blood flow. And so one of the things that we've actually been exploring is just whether we should be doing this on all of our breast lift, all of our tummy tucks, because, you know, my tech's like, well, if we do it when you're worried about it, why don't we just do it on everybody? And so, you know, something that we're involved in. I know that we're all was thinking about, you know, adding cost to patients, but, you know, think about the cost in your office. If you're dealing with that little T incision wound that just didn't heal, and how many times they come back to the office, you know, products that you use in your office, whatever you use, Aquacell AG, you know, MetaHoney, whatever it is that you use. I mean, all those are real cost to your practice, and obviously decreases the experience for patients. So some stuff that we're trying to tweak in our own office personally. I always think they love peeling the stuff off because it does seem super cool. I'll get into some of the stuff that I've done personally, and kind of the idea where it exploded, because our med spa, like I said, got it started, and then we've really adapted this with, at this point, if you get HD high definition lipo, any degree of it, if you have a combination of energy devices, you know, Vaser, Renuvion, Body Tight, any of the things like that, you know, you get this. You don't get a choice. It's just part of your quote in terms of this, because, you know, if they get wounds or if they get little stuff that doesn't heal well, we're the ones left dealing with it. We do it with a lot of our combination treatments. The things that we've seen is, how many of you have done, you know, some high definition lipo? They look absolutely fabulous. They just have some bruising or a little bit of skin staining, and you keep waiting for that to get better so you get your after pictures. You know, I absolutely love this, but these little bruising lines, when are these going to go away? And it's just becomes endless things in your office that you, again, they're just keeping you from that home run result. So I think this has been great to get people back to work faster, decrease the bruising. You know, since we've started using this, knock on wood, we've had 0 skin issues. And so I think those things have been, you know, absolutely phenomenal for us in terms of this. And I think when you're getting really aggressive in terms of doing some etching, some high definition lipo, skin tightening, which a lot of our patients have because of the weight loss that's going on in America right now. It's a lot to ask on the skin when you're getting that superficial, you know, that contouring, doing, you know, Vaser, Renuvion, all the combination stuff. It's a lot of stress on that skin, or if you're doing it in combination with, you know, lipo, tummy tucks, other stuff. So this is a couple of cool things. And so, you know, if there's any of the surgeons who are on or listening, if you're going to take a few take homes, I actually learned this from someone else. I have absolutely loved this. So we'll start. So we finished our surgery, person's down there, you know, got our kind of standard 5 incisions on the tummy stuff things. This is just standard KT tape. And so I'll do what we call it, and we brand it as like skin coaching. So, you know, this person got, you know, some soft definition, got some Vaser, Renuvion, so RF energy. And so what we do is, if they have that little frowny over the belly button, so it's just not quite open, you know, it works really well when you apply energy. Just, you don't want to pull it too tight, but just get them up. The goal is to open up that belly button, get that skin to sit just right. Also, if you're doing any definition stuff, if the garment doesn't fit just perfect, sometimes you get little creases that, again, can be annoying. So you put the skin coaching on, just a little bit of tension, don't do too much. You can get some little blisters, some little irritation stuff. And this truly has made a huge difference. Once we do that, and we'll see if this plays here, then, you know,
Our team, here's a little Carboxy Gel. We do this just to help the skin heal as much as possible, because doing a lot of really cool stuff puts a little pressure on the skin. And the idea is that this helps open up those capillaries. You know, blood supply is vital to everything healing just perfect. Plus, get into that poolside perfect as fast as possible with our new Pilates Peach.
All sorts of weird sayings too that are complementary with your Carboxy Gel stuff. But, you know, so then I'll put it right on their tummy over the top of this. So, you know, I'll do it anywhere where I think there's some bruising, anywhere I thought it was, you know, a little aggressive with the skin. I just cover the whole tummy, and I'll show you Dr. Hoyos here in a little bit. He likes to do a little bit more spot treatments. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer. It kind of depends where you're trying to put this. I know that they've played with the packet sizes too, to give you a little bit more product, which is super exciting. So I think that's become a little bit of a non-issue, because there's really plenty to cover a lot of space now in each packet, which is phenomenal.
Our team, here's a little
So then this is the other big question we get, right? So, because last thing you want to do is wait 45 minutes, to put somebody in a garment. So this is literally just saran wrap that you can order online from, Home Depot, anything like that. And, we keep it in the OR. We cut, so it just covers the entire thing. A lot of times I'll wrap them all the way around because I am super aggressive in the love handle flanks, because most people, they don't want to look square. Even if you're not doing fat transfer to the butt, I feel like if you don't carve out that triangle right behind, by the hip bone, I think that you leave their butt a little bit square. I think then they think that you made their butt square, even though it was square before, but they didn't look at it until they look at it after you lipo them. So I think all those things are super important to come together. But the nice thing is, we've done our skin coaching, we've put our carboxy gel, we've put our saran wrap on, and then now we can just put our garment. So we put our garment in over the top. I'm a big foam user. I know not everybody is. Doesn't really matter from a carboxy standpoint whether you are or not, but then you can just put the garment right over this. We personally will just leave them in this overnight. We'll see them the next day. We do it, every day, 3 days in a row like this. When we see them the next day, we'll take the garment down, take everything off, reapply the gel, and then let them do the last one at home on their own. So that's how we do it. It's super easy. It doesn't really take much extra time because, as you saw, that was literally me applying the entire carboxy gel on there and then, putting the garment on. The nice thing is when you have the wrap, you just lay it down right on top and it seals everything really nicely. This is one of Dr. Hoya's pictures that he was kind enough to share stuff. You can see same thing, right in that line where you're trying to get that nice definition. Got a lot of bruising, just really a lot of pressure on the skin. Same thing, he's mixing up his packets, everything to get set. Let's see if this. And then this is what I'm talking about. And I think this may have been other times when he was trying to layer it or worried about having enough product. So, it was just spot treating. I also think he was trying to just check from one side to the other to see how much of a difference it really made for him overall. But again, there's all sorts of different ways to cover this. As long as you're keeping the product on for those 45 minutes, doesn't really matter a huge degree. I know I get a ton of calls, but any of these kind of clear wrap stuff works really well in terms of this. But just such a big difference for such a deep spot to be able to improve so fast. And I know he's played with it a little bit. He's got a little bit different setup at his clinic where he will sometimes change it every 8 hours if he's really worried about it. For us, that typically hasn't been practical, and we've done really well with doing it once a day. But no question, you can do it more often if you need to, especially if you're super worried about it. So I think there's some room to play, and I think that's the real spot where we can still kind of play from this in the future. But I think the cool thing here is you can see for such a deep bruise, for an area where you were really worried about that skin and the blood supply, for it to look this good already, I think is absolutely fabulous, because we've all had those areas and it just takes so long. You can tell from the incisions down here, she's not that far out from her surgery, and to be that good that fast, I think is pretty incredible. Especially when people are doing lipo, and in their mind, they should be ready so fast from this. Then the thing, and it's funny because when we were preparing for Vancouver about a month or two ago, I feel like feels a lot longer ago than that, but time's been crazy. I actually told them this is sort of my rescue kit, because I don't do as much skincare regimen as I probably should for my own face and those type of things. And so I think it's a rescue kit for lots of things. If you kind of neglected your skin a little bit, it's great to get ready for presentations. I think when you're up late stuff and doing things like this, I think it's great to make you look good the next day when you got to put your fake face on and be smiling and doing all the things running around the office. I think, if you get a little aggressive with the energy devices, or somebody's just looks like the skin isn't healing as it should, I think it's great for that. And then, like I said, definitely have evolved to using it as a rescue kit for some of our mastopexies, tummy tuck, facelifts, especially behind the ears and some of these areas where we struggle with some of that. Again, most of them do fine, but just these little spots that drive you crazy when they overall look great and just can really eat up time and hinder the experience a little bit. This is actually another photo from Dr. Hoya's in terms of a nipple that he was just a little bit worried about. I think all of us have been there. We've had a nipple or areola that was just a little bit congested and used this to treat that. Patient actually did absolutely fabulous. You can see he did a really good job documenting kind of the time track there of the areola and so forth. So I think for all of us, anything that can save or decrease the concern of a nipple areola or T incision stuff is absolutely absolutely priceless. We all get those. If you operate enough, you're going to get some little issues. And so anything you do to decrease that risk, I think is priceless in terms of that. This is some of the stuff where, especially for, some of these lipo, BBL stuff, and actually you need to add another slide to this at some point. We recently had someone that just had a ton of inner thigh swelling and bruising like this, and gave her a couple kits of the carboxy gel. We actually saw her again today at post-op, and she just wanted them because she loved them so much. And in her mind, she had bruising that was this dark and went away in like 5 or 6 days. And so now she puts it everything. And so super interesting, because again, those of you that have ever had some of this bruising down on the leg, if you don't get that bruising out fast enough, you can really get some of that hemosiderin staining in the skin stuff, and then it's such a beast to get out over time. So some stuff just to think about to help with some of that. I'll tell you this, Co2Litf V is something that we've also brought into our office. It's been a little bit newer addition to our practice from the CO2 Pro, but something that I think has been a nice addition as we've expanded our wellness program in terms of this. So it's let us kind of dip our toes into the vaginal health stuff, something that once you get people excited, like the patient I was just talking about, they want to do more things and applications for it. So, definitely, I know they're looking at stuff for erectile dysfunction, also to helping people in terms of people that are having problems with orgasms and other things, vaginal atrophy, in terms of some of that. So there's also some other derm issues down there. I took this out. I didn't really want to talk about vaginal derm issues tonight, but maybe a topic for another night. Not by me though. But definitely some other options in terms of this. But again, another easy way to expand, those patient base that you already have, especially if your practice has a lot of hormones and other wellness things already built into your office. Super easy, something that's going to resonate very, very well with them. And this just shows some of the vaginal atrophy and how people have used the CO2. Again, you're just looking at orgasm, satisfaction, lubrication, desire. I mean, all those things kind of roll in together. If you're not having one, it's sometimes a little bit of a struggle to have the other. So they all kind of fit in little by little. Same thing. You can see this. From our office stuff, it's been interesting because actually didn't realize how many of our staff was going to be interested when we brought this on. And so actually had a lot of people who were super interested, which I think shows you that some of these topics are definitely a bigger issue than maybe a lot of people, or maybe especially, some of the surgeons think about, because you just don't hear it. And I think these sometimes are topics that if you don't have a questionnaire, or if you're not talking about it on social media, I think kind of slide under the radar a little bit, because people aren't always going to be super upcoming. It's hard to be like, hey, I'm here for my breast dog. I also have some vaginal atrophy that I'd like to address, so probably not the first talking point that comes up. So at least some stuff to think about in terms of practice processes. One vagina picture, I promise it's the only one. And then kind of moving into the med spa, because I know that this has been a spot, especially in the day and age of private equity, other people trying to improve the overall valuation of their practice. It's an area to grow, an area that people tend to value. And I think in the plastic surgery world, an area that a lot of people have tried to really put some focus in the past. I think that most of us were a little bit passive about it and thought that they would just passively grow and create passive income, and nothing passive actually ever happens. And so, the idea here is that how can you make your med spa stand out? How can you add some real value to the things that you're doing? Most of the carboxy gel that we do in our med spa wellness tends to be in combination treatments. We do it in combination with any of our skin tightening treatments, whether it's soft wave, RF microneedling, ovulate. We talked a little bit about the sexual health, the skincare, numbing. So I think so many ways to integrate this again. And I really think the lower body is such a huge opportunity, because not a lot of people are talking about it. I think it's an area where in the past there weren't a lot of great treatment, so not a lot of people were involved with it. So I think there are some real opportunities for people in crowded markets to really make a niche for themselves. And the more seamless you can make the process, the more innovative you can be. I think the more it's going to be easy to make a bigger splash into some of those markets. So here's just kind of an example of how we do this. And so, combination treatments, this is someone who got cellulite treatment, got an energy treatment, also, got some biostimulant. The idea, especially here in Texas, where, it's summer most of the time. And so from, end of February till probably about November, you could be at the pool, lake, swimsuit stuff. And so in the past, if you kind of thought about it, oh, people don't want bruising for 2 or 3 weeks, it really limits the times that you can do this. The fact that we can really put this on, that we can minimize that bruising, we still do all the other good stuff as well, put them in compression, get them off aspirin to leave, those type of things, get them on doing some massaging and other therapy. But the combination of this has just made the recovery so much faster for some of our patients. And again, when we're showing these results at 2 weeks and so forth, people are seeing the difference between like our practice and somebody else's, and like, oh, why are those looking so much better, so much quicker? And then most of you also know, after a certain time point, it's actually hard to get people back into the office for any post-op pictures as well, which kills you. So then all you have is pictures with bruising. So they're like, oh, am I going to be bruised forever? No, they just don't come back after 2 weeks, And so it's just those things that we all fight the struggle with in terms of this. And you can see same thing.
Hey guys, we're doing our CO2Lift Pro Mask. This is one of my favorite ways to decrease bruising, speed up healing, especially when we're doing a luxury legs procedure, which here at Austin Plastic Surgeon, that includes ovally for cellulite and some radio frequency microneedling for skin tightening. Today we used our Vivace device. The CO2Lift is so easy to use. It comes with 2 packs, a large and a small, and you literally mix them together. I'm going to send the patient with a 3-pack of these so that she can do another one tomorrow and another one the next day. I'm going to show you how we mix this because we want to put it on right away. So we literally just did a cellulite treatment and a skin tightening treatment. We're going to get the contents of the large pouch out first, and this actually smells incredible as well, which everyone loves.
And so these are the things that we post and we talk about all the time, because then it makes it real to patients. I mean, for you guys, you can see also too, this is real time. So this is how long it's taken her, and that's with her doing all of the explanation and everything else. But again, just what makes your treatment different than somebody else's. And we definitely are a big fan of like the magic headline. So, in terms of, luxury legs, other stuff that just makes the package, really unique to you. And so something super cool. And it's funny because once you start talking enough about this, people will ask, hey, am I going to get that gel thing? I don't really want that much bruising. I got to get back in. I got a pool party. I got my thing, whatever. And so it's nice because you create that awareness. But if talk to people in the past about this, when you're doing posts or you're doing things like this, you really have to be consistent. If I go off script here for just a minute, I have something that I call the 3 C's of social media. And so, if you want another take home pearl that has nothing to do with carboxy gel, one of them is consistency. I think you have to be consistent. You have to do it over and over. I do a lot of trainings, other stuff. I'll get texts or calls and be like, hey, I did a post like you said, and you didn't generate any patients. I was like, well, how many posts did you do? And they're like, I did 8 posts. And it's like, okay, and I typically tell people, if you want to move the needle, do 30 posts in 90 days. That'll move the needle. And so, that gives you a real idea of how many posts you need to do to move the needle. I guarantee you do 30 posts in 90 days, you'll move the needle in terms of whatever treatment you're doing. We're actually doing that study in our own office. We have all the providers pick one procedure and post it out with a big spreadsheet where we're tracking them. I'll tell you, those that post more are in the lead by far. So I think consistency is one. I'll tell you the second one, and probably the most important one, is conviction. There's a great podcast by Alex Ramosi, and I think it was on November 23rd, 2023. But if you listen to it, it's 13 minutes. But it's all about conviction. Like, if you believe in this, if you're really strong about it, and I truly believe that this makes our lipo patients recover faster. I think it makes our BBL patients recover faster. I think our ovule patients do it. People will feel it and sense it. And when you talk about it like that, why this is different, why your treatments are unique, then they can believe it. The greatest way to make somebody believe something is for you to truly believe it. So, if you don't think this is for you, then don't talk about it. But if you really do this a few times and you see a difference, then share that and just talk about what you're doing. So, I think, and then getting your staff to do it. And that's why we're such a big fan of getting our staff involved, staff treatments in terms of this, because then they can speak to it from their own. And then the third C is content. And I always talk about that one last, because people get so fixated about the content, and this content has to be perfect. and right, that you get this paralysis by analysis, post it and forget it. If you think about it, if it's horrible, only 10% of your people saw it. If it was great, unfortunately, only 10% of people saw it. So repost it again. But if it wasn't great, don't post it, try something new. But you'd be surprised, what gets views and what doesn't and what's going to catch on. I did one of the reels that got the most views for us in the last 6 months. I was literally sitting on my couch because we had some rain or snowstorm. I was in a t-shirt and then like green screen some lipo thing and got 250,000 views, probably because the weather was bad and everybody else was sitting on their couch watching Instagram or something, but who knows, and so and it was something that I just did because I was bored. And you never know what's gonna resonate with people in terms of things. I think and we've talked about it a lot, but the post-treatment, I think anything that you can do to differentiate your practice, to make them recover a little bit faster, make the experience, people talk. Hey, I went across the street. Yeah, it was great. I was a little red for a while. I was like, oh, I wasn't red. I had this cool gel. It was soothing, and again, they're like, oh, I didn't get that. And it's funny because how people talk about this, and now on social media, everybody shares these stories. Everybody talks about it, so the group they're talking to is much larger than it's ever been in terms of this. So we talked about this a little bit in terms of application. Obviously, we don't saran wrap their face, but with the tummy, body stuff, and this is true for tummy, butt, legs, any of those. Most of the time we'll just send them home with the saran wrap stuff, so we don't have to keep them in the office for that amount of time. I promised I'm down the home stretch, so I can answer any questions tonight, Steph. But you really want to always work on what's your unique value proposition for the practice, and so what are you doing to improve that? Increased recovery, innovation. One of the things that we really try to do in our practice is how are we always making things better? How are we always, moving forward? What new technology makes sense? And definitely you want to, we talked about conviction. So if you bring something on, you want to believe in it. And so, I would tell you, try a few, do it on 1 or 2 patients, do on something that you're worried about. Just see how it goes before you start talking and making a big deal about it. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I'll tell you, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think that it was going to help us or be as big of a part of our practice as it actually has been and has become. So super interesting on those fronts. I think anything in this day and age that enhances that patient experience, for most of us in big cities, I mean, people have choices. They have a lot of good choices. Here in Austin, there's a bunch of phenomenal plastic surgeons here in Austin, Texas. And how do you stand out? So I think it's little things that really make a big difference for people, and then, part of having a good experience is limiting your complications. And so I think decreasing that bruising, decreasing that skin, issue stuff has been huge for us. Because unfortunately, most of us got here because we're super competitive and want to be at the top of our class. So, when we see each other's work on Instagram, social media, TikTok, Snapchat, we all push ourselves to be a little bit better and a little bit better. So, it's like, how can we push ourselves to be better and, safe for our patients? And that's definitely a balancing act to get us to a good spot. So kind of in summary here towards the end stuff, the practice enhancement, a couple things. One, I think that, we use carboxy gels as basically a lead magnet. Here's something that's a low cost to entry. I think it solves a big problem. Recovery, downtime, bruising for patients is not a huge add-on for them. I'll tell you, in this day and age, it's also not a huge add-on to your practice to bring onto your practice. I have a good friend down in El Paso, and he had texted me about some laser device or something he was bringing on. He's like, oh, what do you think about this? And I was like, we've thought about it. I don't know. It's just, kind of expensive. He's like, I know, another device, another $250,000, and so it's sometimes hard when you think something's great, but the buy-in is so huge, that's not true for this. And you can actually make a return really, really fast, which is nice. Also too, lets you dip your toe in and be like, hey, let's try it, and you're not, $250,000 in the hole just to start to try it. So I think that's huge. I think anything that can cause cross conversion, this is something that, we developed in our practice called completion consultations. And so just by naming it and tracking it every month, the first 30 days, we doubled our cross conversion. We basically have our 3 pillars: surgery, med spa, wellness, and so the idea is this is something we're like, hey, here's a complimentary, carboxy gel. Why don't you see our esthetician and she can apply it? So again, low cost to the practice, gets them over to see your esthetician, gets them introduced to them, and then they go from there. So I think there's some easy ways that are meaningful, because I think just saying, oh, you get this complimentary consultation with the esthetician, okay, for what? You know, like people don't even know what that means, what they're going to do. It's going to get lost when there's actually something tangible tied to it, or they're getting some benefit from it, or, you know, I think it's helpful. And then it's even better when the patient's getting something from it, the practice is providing a better service, and everybody wins. So, I mean, I think that's huge. And then no question from a business development, I mean, anything that increases your revenue, because that's going to lead to more skincare sales. That's going to lead to increased, you know, skin health. That's going to increase to better patient health in terms of their improvement in skin and quality and so forth. And then anything that improves all those things is going to help your practice grow in this unique opportunity, especially for the med spa. So I think it's been a great conversion from surgery to the med spa for us in our practice. So that's kind of my summary. And so happy to answer any questions or anything that you all have.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. We do have like the little Q&A button. So if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to pop them into the Q&A. I remember going to hear your ASAS presentation and then speaking with Dr. Nikhail afterwards. I love just all the ideas that you've talked about from the cross conversion and everything. He said that, I don't know if you talked to him recently, but he said that he now asks all of his surgical consults if they would be interested in doing a complimentary CO2 lift as well. And he's now nailing it down that of those that say yes, 80% are converting to surgeries within 5 days. So he's actually using it to like weed out, you know, who to focus on and who's probably, you know, not going to be as interested. So there is so many different unique applications and ways to use it. So where do you think is the most popular in your practice?
I mean, I think the two are tied with surgery. One, because all the lipo, and we do about 350 lipo cases a year or so forth. And so they don't get a choice. I just truly believe it makes a difference for them. For me, it lets me, especially with all these energy devices, and we have so many patients now with skin laxity. I mean, most of them get some type of energy device. It's such a peace of mind for me. So we just don't give them a choice. We just build it into the cost. I mean, for what it costs us for the nights I don't sleep because I'm worried about that skin, it's not worth it to me. And then the second is all these combinations, because again, we're doing the same thing. You know, you're doing skin tightening, you're doing cellulite treatment, you're pushing the limits of how much, you know, you can do to that skin in one setting and expect it to bounce back instantly.
Do you find, and this is a question that just got popped in, do you find that there's an ongoing revenue stream? Like once you introduce it to them, is the repurchase there? Is there a retention with the usage of the carboxy gel?
I think there's some retention of the carboxy gel as well, but I'll tell you that the bigger, you know, revenue generator is them going to see the esthetician, them seeing the med spa provider stuff. I think that is the bigger value of this. I think from our surgery side, you know, the bigger value is that they're just doing better. I'm being more aggressive with their lipo and that type of portion stuff. I do think there's some cross conversion stuff, but this isn't something where they're like buying, you know, carboxy to do every single day. You know, I think a lot of them like it and they'll buy some for extra treatment stuff. I think the biggest value though for us has been the less complications, people doing better in surgery, and then being able sort of just like Matt and I Keel, you know, being able to push them to the other services and introduce them into those areas. And then it's on us to educate them and provide value and make something meaningful that's going to be worth their hard-earned money.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other question was, are you incorporating the cost into the RF microneedling or those different non-surge energy-based treatments, or is it usually an add-on?
So exactly, I'll just kind of give the whole layout stuff. So for like very specific procedures for us, like any of the high definition lipo, any of the like Renuvion energy device stuff things, it's just built in. They don't get a question. Like we have a lot of patients now that we talk about all the time that they want to add it on to kind of anything. I don't think it hurts. So if anybody wants to add it on any of their other procedures, 100%, because I think they're going to do better. So we definitely have it as an add-on, and a lot of people do that as well. And then for all the med spas, it is an add-on, but we just build it into the quote. They can decline it, but it is an add-on fee for it.
Awesome. Thank you. And as far as the reduction in the bruising and everything, or is it like like, because you've obviously seen a lot and now introducing CO2 lift the carboxy gel into it, is it like 25% reduction in downtime and then the bruising, is it 50%? Like what would be your estimate?
Oh, probably 50-60%. And some of it is really dependent on like the areas that you put it on. Like, unfortunately, we don't wrap their whole body on it, though that would be really, really cool. To do the areas that I tend to focus it on are the areas like just like Alfredo, you know, the areas where you're really doing some of that etching and where you're really beating up that skin, and those that really tend to linger for a while, those areas. And the idea that we just don't get that anymore has been huge. And so, you know, and you saw he put it right on the areas where you had those really dark stuff. Does that mean that we don't still get bruising that like runs down the thighs or a little bit of kind of that bronze hue stuff? Yeah, we still get that for sure. But that's the stuff that goes away. It's that really dark stuff that you still have, you know, 2 months later or something that just kills you.
Yeah. Awesome. So when that, like, are you retailing it as well? Like, are people actually just purchasing it and buying it off the shelf as well?
100%. I mean, for sure. Definitely a lot of the patients that most of them are like the patient I was talking about that have had it in one aspect or the other, and most of them buy it and they use it when they have big events or they do like, you know, treatment weekly. And so kind of get into their routine stuff, depending on what they're doing. Or, you know, if they know they already have a series of package of, you know, lasers or other treatments going, then that way they can, then that's where we do some of the pre-treatments and other stuff with it.
Awesome. I know a lot of people are also really interested in using this in the rare event of a vascular occlusion. How do you feel about that, just based off of your knowledge of using it with the surgery side?
I think in an adjunct to everything, I think it's super helpful because I think a lot of time, especially some of that peripheral stuff, I think the smaller you can make any area of necrosis, I think it's super, super helpful. I think sometimes it's hard to isolate the spot. I think even sometimes if you, depending on, I mean, for a lot of the plastic surgeons here, I mean, if you're like me, you know, we have a couple ultrasounds in our office and we get referred people from all over the city or kind of central Texas area stuff. You know, sometimes a little time has passed by the time they get to us, or maybe it's your own patient and they didn't recognize it right away and call you and like, hey, I've had this for the last day, and you're like, fuck, you know, or something. And so I think in those cases it's even more helpful because you can still go back and try and dissolve something, but some of that damage has been done. And I think anything you can do to open up those areas is going to be super helpful, because if you can turn, you know, a quarter into half a dime, I mean, that is huge on the face.
Awesome. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our questions, unless there's anything else from the audience. I really, really appreciate you, Dr. Franco. You always go above and beyond, even just all the pearls on social media. And I mean, you're a master at marketing and definitely a master at the social media game. And it's apparent by all the you know, the engagement and all the posts that you do. So I love everything that you've said and everything that you've added to give as those pearls to our audience. So it's so much appreciative. And so I think we'll wrap it up here. And again, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Until next time.
Awesome. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.